So I'm really excited to do this vlog. It will be talking to Lathan Singh all the way from Virginia, and he's going to be talking about his journey into Sikhi and also other interesting aspects of his life, which I'm really excited to talk about. So thank you so much for joining me, Lathan. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, this is a question I always ask everybody, and people always think it's a trick question. They think I'm trying to trip them up. But who is Lathan? So, how would you best describe yourself?
I describe myself as being fortunate, excessively fortunate. Growing up in a hostile environment, I am happy, fortunate that I found the path to Sikhism, a path that would change my life forever.
That's great. I mean, how would your friends describe you?
They would describe me as alert, compassionate, kind, loving. And these are all the good names. I've heard bad ones, but these are the good
We'll keep to the good ones, shall we? Lathan, a quick one I wanted to ask. I always ask this question as well because I find it interesting. You know, who are your role models? Like, who did you look up to?
There were three role models apart from my parents, whom I love dearly. They gave me everything I needed to survive. The first being my high school physics teacher. I love physics. Science, technology, I love that. So Marcus Garvey, the son of the late Marcus Messiah Garvey, he was my physics teacher in high school. From him, I learned a lot, about not only about life, but scientific things that I really appreciate and could understand. The son of the late Marcus Messiah Garvey was a leader of the Pan-African movement back there in the 60s. A lot of Blacks were seeking identity. A lot of Blacks were waking up to the fact that we need to be our own, on our own. And I know at the time there were a lot of talk going on, even here in the United States, about Black segregation. You know, Black initiative. So yes, to him, a lot of us as youngsters were looking up to men like these as our role models in life. The second role model was from my high school days also, the Reverend Father Roy Campbell, a Society of Jesuit priest who was also my soccer coach. Because my mom and dad had passed away, he provided not only food, but the need to attend school, the need to continue my school. We had a winning championship team that year, and he told me, you should apply to the United States, to any college. We will give you the access funds to do that. So I applied to University of Michigan, got accepted there, and went there, did a course, graduate study in aerospace engineering. So right then and there, what my mom had always told me, there were events that would change your life, change your life completely. Things I never really did understand what she was saying, which is why I admire her, even to this day, that she could be telling me things back then that would later on prove valid, factual.
I mean, you've spoke about your mom. I mean, you said before, when we've spoken before, that she has roots in India as well. Was she born there, or is it family related?
Now I wish I could say Sikhism, but I would be lying. She had roots in India only from the people around her that I'd known at a very early age, which I didn't see after she died. So to ask them questions like you're asking me now, who was she? That still remains a mystery up to this day, you know. Yeah. But
there could be ways of you trying to trace back your history, maybe. You never know. There could be maybe people who are like historians, maybe giving a bit of information. You never know. You might find out a lot more about your history. That could be another blog for us.
In the mystery of Sikhism, I already have a good idea.
Yeah.
Having faith in Sikhism and the way my life has unfolded, I'm pretty sure I can't talk to anybody about it. It doesn't make sense. They'll probably say, what is he talking about? But having this faith in Sikhism and understanding the mysteries, the unique drama, which is Sikhism, I'm pretty sure that there was some heritage there.
Yeah. I mean, you said that you lost your mother when you were 12. Was that suddenly, or was she not very well, or how did you lose your mom?
My dad and I expected it. We lived by ourselves, the three of us, so we were expecting that. It didn't happen suddenly. And I think the day before she passed, she called me to her bedside in the hospital. And there were some things she said to me outside the earshot of my dad, who kept on asking me over the years, what did your mom say to you? I couldn't bring it to talk to him about it.
Yeah.
But she gave me some very sound words. And the next day, we got a phone call. She had passed. The day before, after I spoke to her. So it's like she probably knew things way before most people.
Yeah. And then you said that your dad actually migrated, didn't he? Or he moved to Birmingham, UK, which is my home city. It's where I was born. How did that happen?
Jamaica having a high unemployment rate, that was my dad's way of trying to get a better life. In the 60s, many Jamaicans, probably West Indians, were migrating to England.
Yeah.
As a part of the British colony, the gateway there was open. So he took that opportunity, of which I'm happy for him. Yeah. I'm really happy for him. I was left there to survive on my own, but this is part of life and understanding.
Well, when your dad moved, and obviously your mom passed away and your dad moved to Birmingham, like who raised you then? So who were you with?
I was on my own. Honestly, at 13 years old, I was going home, which is not a home really. It was with the Rastafarians.
Wow.
Because there I found a family, so I didn't really have a home. These Rastafarian elders, they made sure that I was going to school. A lot has been said bad about Rastafarians, but growing up amongst them, I know differently. At 13, while I was playing soccer in high school, our soccer field, my high school soccer field, was adjacent to Rastafarian camp. So I would go there. It was there that I met Bob Marley, Peter Touch, Bunny Wailers, of the Bob Marley and the Wailers group.
It's interesting because being 13, you're very, very young, and you had a loss from your mother, and your dad moved to obviously Birmingham, and then you're kind of on your own because you have no siblings. So was it hard for you to survive, like by yourself, or did you say like because of the Rastafarian community you had that support?
It was difficult. Now that I look back, I wasn't going home to a home, say. Yeah. I remember studying under the streetlights. Because the only place I could stay, there were candle lights, light a candle. And that's not that much light to study. But, looking back, it was an adventure, I'm telling you, because I learned so much. Talking about growing up in the streets, that's what it is right there. No parent to say, hey, coming out of the rain, it's too late, nothing like that. You're on your own, so free.
Yeah. And that That's quite, I know obviously you said it was an adventure, but you know, hearing it from me, like hearing you say that, it's quite sad because being a 13-year-old boy by yourself, you know, it's not nice to hear that you had to like do your homework and stuff under the street light. You know, it's, you know, you didn't have the warmth of your parents to look after you because obviously your dad had to go to the UK. So, you know, it puts a lot of things in perspective for people like me who grew up with a big family that's, you know, looks after you to compared to the childhood that you had. Like you said, you had to survive. You didn't really have a choice, did you?
That's what Rastafarian taught me before coming a Sikh, before becoming a Sikh, is the art of surviving, the art of living, the art of sharing. Because in Rastafarianism, there's that love that we call brotherhood, that shares, that take care of the other person. So there comes again the compassion, the love for others, you know, and that has never left me, you know, until this day. I still remember and I still assist those who I grew up with who are less fortunate than myself. So it's that part of connection that gives you the will to live and bring that inner happiness and peace.
I mean, you're originally from Jamaica, like we've just been talking about. Tell me a little bit about Jamaica, because I know you've told me a little bit about it. So do you want to tell me a little bit more about living in Jamaica before you moved to Virginia?
Living in Jamaica, for some, it's hard. It's not the beaches, the sun, and the beauty that some visitors would see. Living there, not having resources, it can be difficult. You know, 9% unemployment rate, and which is one of the reasons why my dad had to vacate. Jamaica has always been under colonialism. Even now, the neo-colonialists will still not share what it is or handle the situation in terms of governmental policies properly so that each person can live a little bit better quality of life. There's so much positive influence Jamaica has had on the rest of the world in its music, in its sportsman, athletics abilities, arts, culture. Jamaica has influenced the world. But there are some aspects of the colonialism which we see in India, we see in Punjab, that still remains with us.
You've now gone into Sikhi. You have decided to go on the Sikhi path. I mean, what made you decide to go on this journey?
It wasn't a decision on my own. It's again the revelation of what my mom would have been telling me. So had I had to make the decision, I don't think it would be possible. It's more faith, not faith, fate, destiny. One is destined for certain things to have happened to them. And that's the way it makes more sense of how these series of events unfold. Coming to United States of America there, my third role model would be Dr. Nehal Singh, a medical officer and also a military officer in the Indian Army who was actually born in Nairobi, Kenya. He was a malaria doctor there. But that devotee of Guru Nanak inspired me. Meeting him on campus, let me give you a little story of how I met him. So I'm on campus and I saw this very tall gentleman in a Sikh who was about 100 yards away. So I've never seen a Sikh before. But the turban, it stood out like 100 yards. And I made a beeline straight to him. And I didn't say, hello, good day. The first thing I said, please, sir, can you tell me how to tie that turban? So he was very kind. He didn't speak much. He went to his pocket. He took out this piece of paper. Then he wrote the name of a dress and the dress. and say, go to this place this coming Sunday. So of course, and you know that man disappeared. I wouldn't say disappeared because it's going to sound weird if I said, but I looked up and he was like, I had no idea where he went. Maybe I was so absorbed in a piece of paper. Anyway, I went to this place the following Sunday, and that was where I met Nonel Singh Grewal. I will never forget that day because his path and my path would become so closely intertwined. Each day after campus, I would go to his place and like stay there. So like I was living there with him, you know, and he would have taught me so much about Sikhism. Unfortunately, he passed after about 53 years of us being close friends. He passed away.
Yeah. He obviously taught you a lot in terms of the Sikhi culture. He was obviously like a very, let's say, like a mentor to you.
He was, because everything I know and understand about Sikhism came from him. He was such a devoted person. He would be, even when we moved away from Detroit, he was in Jamaica with me. He came to Jamaica when I went back there. I went back there after college to lecture in the University of Jamaica there.
Yeah.
I lectured engineering subject, and he was there. He came down. We were walking in the streets of Kingston, and people were looking, just absorbing these men in Sikhi. It brings to mind Guru Gobind Singh's prediction of his Sikhs. They will stand out in a crowd.
Yeah, you always tell a Sikh from the crowd, can't you? It's
exactly.
You know, when he's got his turban on, we're walking down the street, it's the first thing, you know, people look at is his turban, and he opens up a conversation, and he gets a lot of people coming up to him and asking him about the turban, which is obviously like the bog, it's very, very important. So he wears his bog with complete and utter pride. So I can see what you mean. But obviously going down in Kingston, that's going to be completely different, isn't it? Not everybody's going to know, everyone's going to notice a Sikh walking down with a turban in the middle of Jamaica. I mean, how did that takes me on to the next thing? I mean, how did people take that, seeing you starting to wear a turban?
I didn't have a problem, and I think why is because when I came back to Jamaica, I was lecturing in the University of Jamaica. Also, I had developed a vehicle while I was working at Ford Motor Company. And this is part of what my creativity, you may ask, how do my friends describe me? I developed a vehicle while working at Ford Motor Company that runs purely on ethanol. So yes. I made prototypes of the vehicle, wrote to the Prime Minister of Jamaica then, and told him, here, I have a concept, which is not actually a concept, these were no prototypes, that would help Jamaica industry in a big way, okay? So I was gonna be another Henry Ford in Jamaica, right? So he gave me a contract. They wrote and told me, okay, please come. And they gave me a contract.
Oh, wow.
To contract to develop these vehicles in Jamaica. And this is when you ask, how did people accept me? I didn't have a problem because as a lecturer, as a person working with the government as a technical consultant, I was highly accepted. And at that time, I was moving in the sphere, in the circle of Bob Marley. So, you know, it becomes so, obviously, easy for acceptance. Yeah, it was so easy, you know, didn't have hardly any enemies. Any enemies there were jealous enemies, which you can easily ignore.
I mean, what interested you to the Sikhi culture then? Because I know you said from before it wasn't just one thing, but I know your mother played a very, very big part of it. But what was it mainly that made you decide that this is what you wanted and this is what you wanted, this is the path that you wanted to go on?
As I told you, funnily enough, The turban that I saw there, I just had to have a crown. I didn't know the meaning of a turban, as a Guru Gobind Singh would say, this is a crown that my Sikhs would wear. I had no idea of that. But that's the first thing that attracted me, like bee to a nectar. But meeting Dr. Singh, I began to understand the spiritual qualities of Sikhi. Japji, he told me, everything you can find in Japji. You do this 4:30, Amrit Vela, before the sunrise.
Yeah.
These were the things that he was telling me, that to develop Rehit, it will strengthen code of conduct, Maryada. You become a more devoted Sikhi by practicing Sikhi. Some Sikhs are non-practicing Sikhs.
No.
It doesn't mean they're not Sikhs. They are Sikhs, born Sikhs. The Sikh who persevere the study of mind, man, that is Guru Sikh. The Sikh that devotes himself to the principle of Sikhism, that is Sikhi.
I mean, have you taken Amrit? Are you a baptized Sikh?
Yes, Dr. Singh, I will tell you. So when I went to that Gurdwara, I went after the Burgundy Sikh, the handsome gentleman. I went there thinking that the first time I went to Gurdwara, I'd get one of these. So I kept going back every Sunday. Every Sunday I kept going back. 5 months passed. Every Sunday, no turban. No turban, no mention of a turban. It is from then I began to learn what Sikhi is. It's not about wearing a turban. It's where your mind and your heart is. And I think my mentor, Dr. Singh, probably was testing me. Is this fella here to get a turban? Is this what it's about? Then one Sunday, he and 4 other Sikhs called me, come with us. And they put the turban on, because I wouldn't have known how to put it on.
Yeah.
Would you believe I drove home with the turban on? For 3 days, I didn't remove the turban. I'm telling you. For 3 days, it was there. If I moved it, I wouldn't have known how to put it back. So I'm going home, looking in the mirror. This is so cool. I am now Prince. So that was the feeling and the attitude until the next week I went back. They redid the turban for me and showed me exactly how a Sikh should don his turban. So appreciative.
How long did it take you to learn how to put your fog on?
It took me a while, because even after they showed me, it didn't go on like, oh, I'm looking at the other Sikhs there. Even now, I still struggle to get it to in the right shape. My hair is so long anyway that it touches the ground.
Oh,
so it's not, it's on the ground.
I did not know. Oh God, your hair's that long. Oh God, I wish my hair was that long. It is really, my hair is very long, but not as long as touching the floor.
It's been growing for some time. So it's hard to get this under a turban. And it's only through the divine inspiration why it's under this thing, because it's not an easy task. It's one of, wanting to do something, and the door will open for you to do that. So that is how it's there.
I mean, when did you take Amrit then? When did you become a baptized and practicing Sikh?
The same Sunday when they did the turban, they had called me, and then the ceremony was performed at that time. At that time, I got my kirpan and I got my kanga there. So at that time, this is over 50 years ago.
Wow.
Maybe 52 years ago.
Oh my God, I did not know that it's been that long. Wow.
This was in 1969.
So how old were you at the time when you got into the Sikhi path then?
I would say maybe about 22, 23. I came here when I was 22, so it had to be at 23 years old. I'm now 72.
Oh my God. You know what? I would
72.
never have thought you were 72. You look really good for 72. This is why I had to ask you, how old were you at the time? Oh my God.
You're
Wow.
so kind. You're so
You,
kind.
you've got good genes. I wanted to ask something else. So we're going a little bit off topic now. So this is something else that really interested me about you was the fact that you were friends with Bob Marley, the legend Bob Marley. I absolutely love his music. I loved his band. I mean, how did you start hanging around with Bob Marley?
So my high school, when I was playing soccer, it was adjacent the Rastafarian camp on Deanery Road called House of Dread. So of
Mm,
course I'll be going over there because this was where my family was. I wasn't living in the Rastafarian camp, House of Dread at the time, but I
mm,
was living amongst other Rastafarian in my area. Mm. So I met Peter, Bonnie, and Bob because Peter and Bob were avid soccer fans. Not only avid soccer fans, they were soccer players themselves. Bob loved soccer.
really?
He
Oh, wow.
loves soccer so much. Bonnie
Mm,
Whaler, the second Whaler, we were
mm.
born the same day, the same month, the same year, in the same hospital. And he would make these jokes about, okay, my dad is your dad.
Oh, God.
Whatever he meant, whatever he meant by that. But, you know, at that time during high school, Bob, while I was in high school, at about 13 years, 14 years, Bob was already making hits.
Mm,
He was already on stage. He was
God.
already a star, but they didn't recognize it at that time. You know,
Mm,
Bob is only about 2 years older than I, you know. So while I was still struggling through school, Bob was there creating all these wonderful music that I would later say, look back and say, I can't believe he had that much, that talent, you
mm,
know, to have done such marvelous thing. Now, I left Jamaica at about age 18, 19 to
mm,
United States.
mm.
So there was a gap there, a gap in time there. And during that time, he did make international headlines with his first album, Catch a Fire. So
Yeah.
I got that when I was in New York.
Mm.
And
Oh,
I know we would have be reunited.
yeah.
So upon graduating from college, working for Ford Motor Company for a while, I returned as a lecturer.
Mm.
And that's where I regrouped with him. I have something exclusive that a lot of people, I had a Bell and Howell camera at the time when I returned, and
Yeah.
Bob Locks, we call it here, was to his shoulder. Huh? So he and his second son, Stephen Marley, I
Yeah.
used to go to his house on a daily basis. They call it the White House for whatever reason.
Oh, that's a different name. Okay.
I would go there and I had my camera. You
Mm.
couldn't come around Bob at that time with any kind of cameras. There were guys around him that would not allow you close to him, especially if you had a camera. So I was
Really?
there. So I was there with my movie camera, shooting Bob and and Stephen. Stephen was about five, couldn't be more than about 6, 7 years old at the time. But he was
Mm.
juggling with Stephen there. And I had 15-minute footage, which I still have. I still have this footage of him juggling there. And I look back on that from time to time. As a matter of fact, I gave his son, Stephen Marley, a copy of that. That's the
Mm.
only copy I've released. But this to me was some of the most pleasant times I've
Mm.
had, you know,
I mean,
knowing him,
Bob
being
Marley,
around him.
he was just a legend.
Yeah.
I mean, who knew the person that you grew up with was going to be like an international star? I mean, people still play his music I've got all his albums in my collection. You know, everybody knows the name Bob Marley. Everybody knows it, you know, and it's crazy to know that you actually grew up with him. You took photos of him. You got footage of him. You know what I mean? Do you still keep in touch with the Marley family? Like, do you still keep in touch with like Damien and Stephen? Do you still keep in touch with them?
I see Stephen, Damien, when they come on tours here. Other than that, if I go to Jamaica for the visit, they may be somewhere else. I know they're probably living in Miami or elsewhere. So his offsprings, they have their own life, you know. I'm of a different generation. But every chance I get, I would put the photos on Facebook of Bob, Damien.
That's when I sent you a message today. I was like, are you friends with Bob Marley? And you're like, yeah. And I was like, oh my God, right. That's something we got to talk about. But
let me give you another story here.
Okay.
After I returned to Jamaica under the Prime Minister's invitation, they wanted to develop these two vehicles that I produced. As a matter of fact, I shipped them there from California, where I had built them there in California, and shipped them to Jamaica after getting the contract. So the government at that time, the Prime Minister's government at that time, they wanted to produce these vehicles. And they called me in a meeting and told me their intentions. My intentions, though, was for the government to subsidize these vehicles so the common person who couldn't afford to bring their produce from the rural areas to the city markets, they would have a means to do so. So I was a technocrat, and I was sitting with bureaucrats who they didn't understand, or they wouldn't understand what I was saying, right? And they told me, okay, you will be a managing director, but we want you to turn these vehicles over to us so that the gentleman's name was Billy Youngchin can go ahead and produce these vehicles. I should have said yes, because that would be my way out of that. Instead, I kind of refused, and within a week, my contract was terminated. So I went to Bob Marley. Here's where Bob Marley comes to the picture again, and told him about this sad venture. And he told me not to worry, it's okay. When I come back from Germany, we will produce these vehicles. So I was so happy. I'm saying, okay. And Bob sang this song, when one door is closed, the other is open, right? So this is what I was singing. It wouldn't have happened anyway. When Bob went to Germany on that tour, we got news that he was suffering from cancer, which I found it hard to believe. Those who are closer to Bob, they kind of have a different narrative on what happened to Bob. But Bob would not return in the state that we thought he would. And there goes that side of my dream and hopes for developing those vehicles.
I mean, do you remember when Bob died?
I did, until today. I remember exactly where I was when the news came. Oh. It was like getting kicked in the stomach. You know, it's something that I'd find it hard. Pretty much when my mom died, you know, that darkness that came over you.
Because obviously you guys were very close. You grew up, you shared very great memories. I mean, how many people can I say I have spoken to actually knew Bob Marley? You know, and it's those kind of memories that will live on. You know, by you talking about him, by you sharing some memories of him, these are the things that keep people's memories alive. And you still got the footage of him. You know, you talk about him so fondly. It's nice. I almost feel like I know him, and I don't know him. I just listen to his albums, but it feels like there's like a connection. Do you know what I mean?
In the Rastafarian culture and in Kingston, Jamaica, it's a very, very small place. You get to know each and every one, especially if they're entertainer, you know, so it was easy. And it's a person is open to everyone. He's everyone's friend.
Yeah. And then another thing I want to touch base on, might be a bit of a controversial topic maybe, but you know, obviously you are now a Sikh. Do you ever have anyone from the Black community questioning you in terms of why you went down the Sikhi path? And are they ever, did you ever get people that say you may have forgotten the Black history?
How could I forget the Black history when I'm very much a part of it? I've had questions like that. I've had questions like that before. You know, it was an African woman. You know, why are you wearing this thing on your head? I find it hard to answer because the answer wouldn't have been pleasant, although it could have been kind to her, you know. You still don't understand much of what you don't know, you know, could have been my answer. But yes, but on a whole, on a large, I don't get much, how you say, interference, anything like that from the first 50 years. I was always around Dr. Singh. And he protected me. Even when I went to the Gurdwaras, if there were any resentment, which I would doubt, he was always there beside me. So he was like a protector, a shield at that time. Quite recently, though, there have been some insidious incidents within the Sikh community of disparaging. And I did post something like that on Facebook. A Sikh from Canada went to the Gurdwara, he and his daughter. While they were serving langar, they passed him over. The person serving the water passed him over. And of course, that is in itself is disparaging. When I saw the post, I told him, but I come to know different because I've seen and experienced similar things recently. Now, let me hasten to correct that. This is not Sikhi, because the practicing Sikh will never do anything of such. It's things like this we have to ignore. And it didn't happen.
You have to try and educate people, don't you, in terms of how their behaviour is. But sometimes you can't always get through to these type of people. And it is the best thing is to try to ignore it if you can't educate. Do you know what I mean? So that's understandable. So a lot of things.
We take lessons from our guru, from our gurus, the fifth guru all the way down. These gurus gave their life, you know, in protecting the dignity of Sikhism. The Mughal and all these different emperors that would want to obliterate Sikhi. So something as a slight disparagement, it doesn't mean anything. We come to expect it. If it wasn't there, then we wouldn't be Sikhi. So this is what I have to say in my message. Yes. You come to expect these differences because all Guru, they live through this. They did not give up. They did not even make a comment about it. They accepted it. And in such doing, we accept also.
How do you deal with, you know, people from like the Black community who do say to you, have you forgotten your own roots in terms of, you know, what Black history has happened? What do you say to them? Have you ever had that where people have said something to you, or have you not had anything?
One cannot forget the roots, and if someone was to say that to me, I would explain to them, look at me and look at me closely. Do I look like a person who has forgotten the roots? You see? And this again is to discredit or divide any movement, whether it's Sikhism, whether it's Black power, whether it's Black pride. For example, let us look back to how Black Lives Matter really started. It started as an extension to Black power in the 1960s. Stokely Carmichael, Bobby Seale, you know, on all these great men who were sacrificing at that time.
Yeah.
They might have had a little bit of friction between them, because wherefore Black power was pointed to secularism, to Black identity, Black ownership. Bobby Seale and the Black Panther, they were pointing to, okay, we're not about race, we're more about class. And that is the difference where Black Power, Black Panther had some differences. What happened is that the establishment, knowing of this separation, went in and further divided them. They always find similar thing that is happening to Black Lives Matter today. They're terrorists, they're thugs, they're murderers, they're violent. That's not what Black Lives Matter is about. It's about unifying and standing up against police brutality, against the discrimination against certain types of people. That's what it's about. And if it wasn't about that, it would have faded, because it did fade back 2016, 2018. And all of a sudden, 2019, 2020, there is a resurgence of Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, I mean,
and there's a reason. Go ahead, please.
You know, in the light of like what happened with George Floyd that what we were just talking about. I mean, how do you feel like the Black Lives Matter movement has impacted you? Has it impacted something inside you about this big movement that's happened? Or is it something you've obviously experienced growing up?
Oh, I've experienced discrimination. I've experienced discrimination, maybe not in Jamaica as much as United States, because discrimination in Jamaica is more along class lines, not along racial lines. That's a big difference. But coming to United States, it was evident. I came here in the late 60s. It was evident that you cannot go certain places, you cannot do certain things, and we will tolerate you. We won't really accept you. We'll tolerate you that you're a person, which is not, it's not good enough. It's acceptance. It's total acceptance. So this movement, Black Lives Matter, is doing the thing that we need to have done to stand up against, whether it's white nationalism, whether it's racism, it does not matter. It's still.
I mean, there was a group here. I don't know if you're aware, obviously, of dance groups here in the UK. There was a dance group that did a brilliant performance about what happened to George Floyd. And one of the dancers kneeled, had a police officer and was kneeling on his neck just to show what had actually happened. There was massive support, but then there was people that complained, you know, obviously them even taking the knee. You know, I don't really understand why people would have complained about it, considering it's something that actually happened and it was a brilliant performance. So I don't really understand like why people take that so negatively and why people can't understand why Black people are taking the knee.
They understand quite well, but it's a way and a means of putting an end to the Black Lives Matter movement, which isn't going to happen. And I'll tell you why it won't happen. With the Black Power and the Black Panther movement, they were singular in the sense that they weren't supported by other races or people of color. Here's the difference with Black Lives Matter. We find it was not only Black people out there protesting, there were people of color, whether it's Asian, whether it's white, they form a central part of Black Lives Matter. That's a big difference. Wherefore the establishment could wipe out, discredit, obliterate Black power in the 60s. It's hard to do that with the Black Lives Matter movement. It's here to stay, and I'm happy. I'm happy because it's about time that we as people of color stand up. And I'm not talking only in the United States. I'm talking about what's going on in Punjab. I'm talking what's going on in India. So it's not only Black Lives Matter. Here's where they come in to discredit Black Lives Matter. They will have the name Blue Lives Matter, White Lives Matter, to kind of reflect that, okay, it's not only Black people. They're not doing that with a positive intent. They're doing that to, again, separate the people of color so that we can find an argument to discredit terrorists, murderers, thugs. This is what is all happening, you know. And the people, though, they know better. It's an awakening. And I wish the same thing would carry over to where we have the genocide in Punjab, where we have the genocide in India, where we have all of these things happening. It's only bad that the protests will not be allowed in these countries.
No, I mean,
that's why
obviously in 1984 in India, obviously, you know, families there have never had any justice. Some families never even knew what happened to their sons, what happened to their husbands. You know, it's true, you can't protest there. You can't say anything there because you will get arrested or something would happen. And, you know, 1984 to Sikhs it's such an important date that no one ever forgets. People here in the UK never ever forget, you know. And it's I agree, you can't protest there, you can't even talk about it. So
that is sad, because here goes the end of democracy as we know it, even here in the United States. And that they use the police state to uphold this thing. People weren't out there protesting violently. If there were thugs, if there were robbers and looters, they may have been planted there to create this problem. But the people who are protesting Black Lives Matter, they didn't go out there. It's a peaceful organization.
Have you ever come to the UK?
I was there for Led Zeppelin concert in 2007.
Oh!
I was actually...
When you come back again?
Of course. The next chance I get, I'll be there.
How's things been with you, like since you've been on the Sikhi path? Because one thing you did say is if you hadn't gone on down the Sikhi path, you don't feel that you would have been there, you wouldn't be here with us today. What did you mean by that?
As I say, I grew up in a very hostile environment. You know, even growing up when I was 13, there were friends of mine who were like shot, again by police in Jamaica, you know, because as a Rastafarian, just like as a Sikh, you have no right to be here. You have no right to go into certain areas when you're not supposed to be there. So, you know, my temperament then as a Rastafarian would be to stand up for my rights. And you can see here what happens when you do stand up for your right. The amount of Black men, male, that have been killed, including Black females that have been killed here by police indiscretion. So it is like, my whole path has been changed, because wherefore I would have retaliated stupidly. Sikhism has taught me, no, there is another way about this. There's temperance. You don't go about taking matters into your own hands. It's the gurus. All revenge, all these things is done by the Guru's grace. So if we are really meditating, and I don't mean only by saying what. This goes on 24/7. The Sikh who have adopted this means, this mode of contacting Guruji, and I'm talking Sas, Grass, Sas, Simran, staying in focus, So when I became a Sikh, coming from Jamaica and seeing so many weird situations, at 13, I was staying with a family that they would do these weird things. I'm talking about black magic and things like this. It's there.
Wow. You know, I've really enjoyed talking to you. It's been such a great story to tell, because, you know, the funny thing is, like I said to you on the phone, I found your profile and I'd followed it, and I was like, right, I'm definitely going to message him to try and get to talk to him in my blog. And we finally got a chance now to actually speak, and it's been great. You know, it's been really, really insightful to just have a chat, and just get to know you as a person. It's been really great, and I can only say thank you for sharing, your story in terms of what you've also gone through. And I feel like there might be another blog after this, I think, because I think there's other things that we could also talk about. But I just wanted to say thank you for taking part.
You made it comfortable,
That's
it's like
good.
going to the dentist and find out there's no pain at all here.
That's a good example. No, I try my hardest just to reassure people that I talk to that it's just going to be like an informal kind of chat. I really appreciate you talking to me all the way from Virginia to little old me in the UK. So I can only say thank you, and I really hope we can do another one in the future.
I really hope we can stay in touch. Part of my contribution or work here from Dr. Singh is to be able to help to contribute as much as I can to those who need help.
I'm sure me and you will definitely keep in touch, because I feel
I
like
would love that.
There'll be another blog, I think, because I thought of other things that we could talk about. So I really appreciate you taking your time out for me today.
Thank you very much, Sunita. I appreciate it. I hope to keep in touch.